Hello everybody, this is Martian Peace Theater and I of course am the starving Martian, and today we're going to be looking at Mars Attacks Classics Volume 2. We previously looked at Volume 1, which collected the 5-issue miniseries that Topps Comics put out in 1994. And those 5 issues sold well enough that they decided in 1995 to go ahead and make an ongoing series. And so they commissioned the Mars Attacks ongoing series, and it only ran 7 issues, had 7 regular issues. After the 7-issue run, they canceled the regular series. They put out a couple specials, one-shots, miniseries, which are collected in a future volume, Volume 3, and then that was more or less the end of that. The comics never really took off as well as they were hoping. The movie did okay in the theater, but it was not the smash hit that the comics needed for that boost in sales, and so Mars Attacks kind of petered out of existence by the end of 1996, and when it reemerged for a while, but while it ran, this is what we got: Mars Attacks Volume 2. Mars Attacks Volume 2 picks up, where the miniseries left off. Where the miniseries left off was with the Martians only partially successful in their invasion of Earth. Earth has been divided into Martian occupied zones and Earthling occupied zones, and there's a very tenuous peace agreement, each side kind of wanting to take back territory from the other. And so that's where we pick up in Mars Attacks Volume 2. And I won't be going through the entire story. If you want to know what happens and how and why, you could pick this up for yourself, either in this volume or if you feel like hunting down the individual issues. I do have issue 1 individually, only because I really like the cover. And while the covers are reprinted in here, nothing beats this nice glossy cover that the original printing has. The interior artwork and colors are just about the same, but the cover has some great art by itself. And so this is Komodoth that we're looking at here. He's just about, I would call him the main character of the Mars Attacks top series. He's the leader of the Nards, who are the more warlike out of the two subgroups of Martians, Nards and Payaks. You always know when you're looking at Komodoth because he has these distinctive cheekbones coming off here that the others do not have. And I just like this picture here. This is good poster quality artwork. And as you can see up top, again, soon to be a major motion picture directed by Tim Burton from Warner Brothers. And while true, I'm not going to say this is false advertising, it is slightly misleading in the same way, and there's a lot of similarities I want to talk about in a separate video, but in the same way that the Mask comic books did not, if you watch the movie, you did not know what to expect when you got the comics, and very much the same way here. The Mars Attacks movie, if you just saw that and then went back and got the comics, you might be surprised by some of the things that you find in the comics themselves. The comics are a bit gory, which is fine considering the source material. If you look at the original cards, the cards for their time were exceptionally gory. Not so much anymore, but at the time when the cards came out, they set a standard, and so I'm not worried about the gore here. There are some aspects of the storyline that do not appeal to me, and for one thing, I think the Martians in the storyline get a little bit too, and there's really no other word to use, they get a little bit too rapey for my tastes. For example, You just saw the cover of issue number 1. Here is the cover of issue number 2. Alright, so we got the Martians there and a naked woman who clearly doesn't want to be where she's at, all strapped down and ready for some Martian insemination. Because as it turns out, Mars needs moms. There's a whole subplot coming through the series that apparently Martians, for whatever reason, have become incapable of reproducing, and they need to use human hosts. And so there's a lot of that sort of thing going on. You're not actually, I say a lot, but aside from that one character there, Colleen McKay, who's also one of the main characters throughout this volume, and she was in volume 1 as well. But aside from her, you don't see a whole lot, but it's enough. Obviously, Topps felt that the Martians themselves weren't cool enough to sell their comics, that they needed sex to sell, and I think that was a mistake. I think the Martians clearly should be the draw here. So just go through a couple highlights of Mars Attacks Classics Volume 2 for you. And this also from issue number 2. There's a storyline, a plot that follows some of the Martians themselves as they go on a quest to destroy this queen ant here. And I found this part to be one of my favorite parts of the whole volume. It's very much like Aliens, the movie Aliens, except the Martians here taking on the roles of the Marines. And it's interesting that they allow some of the Martians to be heroic, because although they are the invaders, although they are taking over the Earth, in any war, you have heroes and villains on both sides, as Star Wars Episode 3 was kind enough to point out in their opening. Fun fact, in the post-Martian invasion United States, Newt Gingrich is our president. So, there's that for you. And if that weren't enough, right on the next page, issue of cover 4, there we are. We learned that the Martians are targeting Rush Limbaugh. He actually appears in the comic as a potential target for the Martians. Another thing that appears in the comic. Yep, he's a Mog, part man, part dog. He's his own best friend. And I just point that out because these comics were published, as I said, before the movie came out, and the movie, of course, would make the concept take the concept further with Sarah Jessica Parker there, and that would become one of the most well-known images from the movie. So it had its origins here in the comic. Another thing that we have towards the very end of Volume 2 here. There we go. This is Cannibal Ann, or Cannibal Annie. Yeah. Again, as I said, Topps felt that the Martians themselves weren't good enough, weren't special enough, I don't know, to capture the imagination of comic book readers. And so they said, yeah, how about a three-breasted cannibal woman? That should do it. And, yeah, so she becomes a major character towards the very end of the story. You see her before, but she's not revealed until the very end. See what the Martians... She's an experiment. The Martians did this to her. And we'll see more of her in Volume 3. And there you are if you want to see more of her right now. And so, as with the rest of the Topps series, I find Mars Attacks Classics Volume 2 to be a mixed bag. There's some areas where I think they go a little too far. I still don't like the design of the Martians for the series. Partway through, after the first, I think it's 5-part story, Counter-Strike, They switch artists, and I like that art even less than the previous art. That might just be me personally. Um, I think it gets too dark in places, but there's also some quirky things. They do have some fun with the concept. Um, by the end of this, they've already set up some strange things that'll come, like the idea of a baseball game between Earth and Martians is set up in here. That'll be realized in a one-shot special that's collected in Volume 3. And so that's Mars Attacks Classics Volume 2. Again, I recommend these for any Mars Attacks fans or completionists. The casual fan, I would skip to the more recent IDW stuff. And so we do have Mars Attacks Volume 3, which I'll be reviewing before too long, but before we get to that, we've got to get through Mars Attacks Image. And that will be coming up very soon. So this has been the Starving Martian, guys. Hope you've enjoyed. And we will catch up with you all later. Keep watching the skies.